My name's Tom Ross, and welcome to the Honest Entrepreneur Show, where I'm bringing you tried and tested advice to help your online business without any of the bullshit. Today, I'm back again with some more live Q&A with the incredible listeners. We've got some awesome questions today, including what happens when you're spinning too many plates, as well as when should you go all in on what you're most passionate about creatively. Next up, we're joined by the super talented British designer, Connor Fowler. Connor actually came to our offices here and hung out, which was really, really fun. Connor, welcome to the show. Do you mind sort of telling the listeners a little bit about yourself and what your question is today, please, mate?
Hi, everyone. I'm Connor. I'm at C Fowler Design on everything, pretty much. So I'm a logo and brand identity designer, and my question today relates to that idea. So Phil, who was the previous question, was talking about imposter syndrome and what do you do when things are going really, really well? Like, how do you chase that? What happens? And mine is, I had something that was going really, really, really well. And because of that, I made more money than I've ever made in my life through logos and identity, through something I'm passionate about. I was making content through Instagram and other platforms that was building me an audience that would get this work. And at the end of last year, through various things, I can't really pinpoint why, I felt pressured to make not just what I was really good at and what I was going all in on, but also to make lots of different things. Maybe it was because I was scared to not go all in on that one thing, and I wanted to spread the branches a bit to see where it would go. Because I was afraid I would lose out on not being in every circle. So that would be audio, visual, video, everything. Now, is it something that you should go back to basics and go, this worked last time, you've tried a bunch of new stuff, go back? Have you ever experienced that type of situation, Tom?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Just before I jump in and answer, are you talking a lot about like branding and content production? So when you say audio and video, like you're putting out content in a variety of different mediums and spreading yourself a little bit thin, right?
Yeah, so I've tried creating things like a podcast, creating videos, creating different types of content. And honestly, although I enjoy the creative aspect, I absolutely detest the production. But I feel like it's an important thing to have because it's a core part of marketing. You're doing it right now. You're recording video and audio, which will then be distributed everywhere. And it's an important part of marketing. But I can't afford to hire someone to do my production at the moment. So it's a case of, well, do you double down on everything that worked and add maybe one new thing? Or do you just go back to basics? Like, I feel like I'm, as you say, spread too thin.
Yeah, it's a very common problem to have, and I'm living it right now. I've lived it for a lot of years. There's no like black and white answer, to be honest. I think a lot of it maps to what your goals are, Connor. So the way I see it, you get like the short term client work and things of that nature. You get the long term reputation and brand. And I think you're doing both, and you're doing them very well. I know you've got like the Fowler Hour podcast, for example. You're putting out Instagram stories, you're putting out Instagram content. Have you got YouTube right now, Connor?
It's just the archive for the video stuff, for the podcast stuff.
Cool. But yeah, you're doing a lot. And I look at you, you're someone on my feed, you're doing more than pretty much everyone else on my feed. I think we're quite similar in that respect. I think we understand brand building. We understand the power of being on multiple platforms so multiple audiences can discover you. And I know you get it, right? You're switched on with this stuff. But equally, I'm the same. I get burnt out on it. Sometimes I think, man, it would be really nice to just run my company actually, or go home and see my girlfriend instead of right now the whole team here, apart from dear old Marco behind the camera. The whole team have gone home for a 4-day weekend for Easter, right? They're all chilling out. They're probably in a beer garden right now. And I'm here talking to you, which I love doing, but I'm here in this really warm office recording this. And it's because my goals and my ambitions are quite big. And so I'm trying to play the long game. The way I see it is it's an investment. It is short term or, immediate pain, sacrifice, where you get a bit burnt out. You're putting in the extra work other people aren't willing to put in. And it's an investment because there's no guaranteed payoff, but you're doing it like a gamble where you hope there will be a payoff. You're putting in the work now because you feel like it should pay off at some unknown point in the future, and you're going to see a bigger return in the future. But in terms of like, should you be doing it or should you not? Again, it depends on your ambitions. Like we could be working 16 hours a day and putting out 5 podcasts and just be unbelievably prolific, but that probably wouldn't fit how we wanted to live, right? But equally, we could be a hermit. We could be head down, not even be on social media, not be on Instagram, and just be churning out client work. That would be much more limited. We might have a little base of local clients or whatever, but you wouldn't have your 20,000 plus followers. You wouldn't have your brand. You probably wouldn't have got the speaking opportunities and so on. So I think the answer is always somewhere in the middle. And I get the same thing running Design Cuts. The older we get, you kind of bolt things on over time, and that might be how you're feeling.
That's what it feels like. That's
Yeah,
exactly what it feels like. So I feel, as you've just said, bolting on is probably the best way to describe it. I feel like a car with a lot of patchwork on it, where I've somehow acquired this 30-year-old Jeep, but bits keep falling off and I have to keep patching it with weird things that don't quite fit. And I think those things that don't quite fit are spreading yourself too thin, doing things like video content. I'm like, I love being on camera. Like, it's great. Do I want to sit down and edit an hour and a half Q&A session? Hell do I. Like, I don't want to do that. I enjoy the process. I enjoy the finished content, but I just want to be making content, making creative and drawing shapes, man. Like, regardless of what the big ambition for me, which is something I don't really talk about because I kind of don't lock it down enough, is more to just be able to fund a lifestyle that allows me to do what I want to do. I don't want to be, obviously opportunity wise, being like Chris Do would be amazing, but I don't want to be the multimillionaire that Chris Do is through motion graphics and through the agency and that type of stuff. But to be able to see an investment in myself now, it feels like investing, as you said, in things that I don't feel I'm very good at or don't enjoy seems like a waste of time, when I could be investing that same time doubling down on the area that I'm good at and I'm not completely an expert in yet.
Yeah, I'm so feeling you on this question, Connor, to be honest, mate. I'm going to use myself as my example here because I'm in the same position. So I'm doing my personal brand right now. And as you know, I've got Marco behind the camera here. I've got a couple of other part-time people who are helping me scale in some kind of small part-time regard, although Marco is like the main investment. And with that, how I've done it is I actually set myself like personal budgets. It is an expense every month. Over the course of a year, it's going to add up. And I'm not charging for anything even. So it's real madness. This is real like faith, right? I'm investing time and work and effort and burnout and money right now. And I'm not going to make money from it for years, which is kind of crazy, but it's that real long game. So how I'm doing that is I looked at my expenditure, my personal expenditure. I got a Monzo card, little plug here, love Monzo. And I restricted my spending. I set hard budgets and I freed up enough cash to allow me to go and invest in this and do this. And this doesn't have to be as expensive as you might think. This is not you going and hiring a video editor for like 25 grand a year or something like that. I'm always a big fan of using sites like Upwork, where you can find remote people incredibly cheaply in many cases, because the currency, you know, if you're paying in dollars or pounds in their country, that goes a long way. You know, they're very, very hungry for that work. And you could get someone super cheap and affordable, and they're there remotely editing your videos, shipping it back to you. So you can and should be focusing on the work you love, which is producing the content, talking passionately about it, building an audience, and investing in your creative craft. And I know you mentioned you can't currently afford that, but it's like, what if you did scale back, your expenses even more? What if you doubled down on the client work and brought in more revenue to facilitate paying for that? It's all an investment. I also think a good way to look at it, like, imagine you're paying this video editor, I don't know, like $8 an hour or something like that. I would like to think that your hourly rate is more than that, probably substantially more than that for what you charge your clients. And so when you just do the maths like that, if you can free up 6 hours a week or 12 hours a week or whatever it is, editing video, and put those 12 hours into either doing client work or attracting more clients or building your brand in a way that will get you more clients in the next few months, then the math plays out that that's just a logical thing to do. But I think often what holds people back is that initial step where they're kind of perhaps cash poor in the immediate sense. And so it's kind of making that first jump feels impossible. So if it's a case of like 3 months head down, working as much as you can, saving up, limiting expenditure, and you get that little buffer there, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And it's not fixed. Again, it's not hiring a full-time member of staff. Maybe you try it for 2-3 months and you're like, actually the maths isn't working because in the freed up time I'm not able to counter that with additional revenue, so I'm going to put a pause on this for now. And that's fine. You haven't really lost a whole lot. But what I predict will happen is you do that 3 months time, you go, man, I can't believe I used to edit my own videos. This is freaking nuts. I would never go back to the way it was. And you're churning out more content than ever. You're expanding your brand and you're earning more money. It just takes a little bit of faith and a little bit of, short-term sacrifice and investment in what you're trying to actually build. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's something I need to go and think about and then maybe come back to you with it another time. So thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it.
It's all right. And I'm a huge fan. Honestly, I've got a lot of admiration for everything that you're building. And so I would hate to see it go backwards, not forwards. I'd love to see you be doing more content, more brand building, more getting your name out there, more available time for you to, go and do speaking, get on podcasts and all that kind of stuff. That's good stuff you should be doing. And if suddenly it's like, actually, I see all of that stuff shrink just because you get fed up with video editing, then I think something's really out of whack and like you're doing yourself a disservice, because I think you're better than that at content production. And I know you're hopefully more ambitious than that. And it's not as impossible as it might seem right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool. Appreciate you jumping on, Connor. And everyone go check out Connor's podcast. It's good. So next up, we have Jude, I believe. Jude, are you raring to go by the look of it? Do you mind introducing yourself, what you're all about, your Instagram handle, etc., and what is your question?
So yeah, I'm 19. I just left sixth form last year, and that's when I discovered what this design thing is. At the minute, I'm trying to put together I'm putting together a podcast and trying to reach people my age, basically. And the question is really, and it's ironic because I'm trying to target people that haven't gone to university or have that are my age, but I don't know what content would get them to engage with my platforms the most, really.
Cool. So I would do two things. One is just immerse yourself in the community that you're trying to reach. I always preach this, and virtually no one, me included, does this enough. So if you're trying to reach graduate or super young designers who are, trying to make it into the industry, then go and talk to them in real life. Go to campuses on Instagram, go and connect with all those people. Like, befriend as many as possible. I'm not talking pitching on like go listen to my podcast kind of thing. I mean, literally just build relationships very authentically. And you're one of them. You're not like some creepy 60-year-old dude who's trying to be like, hey kids, like tell me about yourselves, right? You're one of them. And that's a really powerful thing because they should be your community. When you live and breathe that, that's such a powerful thing because so many people, they're kind of half-baked part of their community, but they don't fully understand it. They don't have full context on the people that they're serving. And the way you're going to serve this community is by knowing what makes them tick. So if you think of some of your best friends, you should really be able to tell me off the top of your head what they care about, what they're scared of, what makes them laugh, what their aspirations are, all that kind of stuff, right? So you want to try and have a similar depth of knowledge, or as close as you can get, with 10,000 students, 50,000 students, or even a few hundred students to start with. And so by getting deeply immersed in that community and getting a better understanding, it's going to give more content ideas. You're going to be listening to them. You're going to have to become a real good listener, have a lot of empathy. And when you're having these conversations, you're listening, you're taking notes. You should have a list as long as your arm in terms of podcast topics you can talk about, because you're going to start seeing patterns. The same way I do with my community, right? I look for the patterns. I put out this post earlier that Eric touched on, talking about how most creatives don't have a creativity problem. They've got a marketing problem. And people are still commenting on it right now. And that's a pattern, right? Whenever I post about that stuff, I'm like, oh, that's clearly a pain point. Alarm bell. I should be doing more content around that because that's resonating. I post some shit where it kind of goes very flat and people don't resonate. They don't care. And so when you're having these conversations, you don't even need to be at the content production stage here. You're just seeing, what lights people up. What do you talk about, or what do they talk about when they're like, oh man, this is draining me, or like, I wish I had this, or, I dream of doing this, or this is a real struggle for me, whatever it might be. And so get out, have as many conversations as possible. That would be point number one. Point number two is the Gary V thing. I don't know if you're familiar with Gary V.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
Cool. So he's got this thing of document, don't create. And I think when you're not an industry leader, when you're not an established person in your industry, you need to just spit your truth, which is that you haven't perhaps made it yet, but that's a beautiful thing because you're trying to make it. And that's more relatable to all these people that you should be out there befriending and getting to know. They're going to love that because you're all in the same boat. You're on the same journey together. And that's such an awesome thing, honestly, dude. So like, if you're there and let's say suddenly there's hundreds of people you're chatting to every single week and you start putting out content that isn't like, hey, I've been in this industry 30 years and you should listen to everything I say and I'm the oracle of all knowledge. And it's actually like, hey guys, I'm figuring it out. And like, here's a bit of content over here. Like I talked to these kids on campus and like, we had a bit of a rant about like how we're all struggling with X, or like I've been talking to some of you over here and so I put together this, or like I did go and find an expert from over here to address my question, which I know a lot of you have as well. Or this week I'm struggling with something because like I'm banging my head against the wall with this problem trying to break into the industry, and all your people in your audience are like, yeah, me too, because they're the same as you are. That's a really powerful thing. So whatever you do, don't try and position yourself as like the know-it-all expert, because people A, are going to smell bullshit, and B, it's not going to be relatable. So when you just tell your truth and you just share every step of it, the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, everything in between, and you get yourself out there to help with distribution, that's going to be what gets everything off the ground, right? Because people are they're going to resonate, they're going to relate, they're hopefully going to like you. And so then it starts to all come together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great.
Cool. And it's a scary thing as well. Like I remember when I first read this thing from Gary Vee, document, don't create, I had to dissect it a bit. I was like, well, it sounds nice and I think I know what it means, but I didn't fully digest it. But like literally, I did this the other day. I was recording something like this. I got my phone out and was like, we're just having a conversation about this. This was on like a weekly live call with my followers. And I got my phone out and documented it. I was like, oh, we just had a bit of a brainwave. So I wanted to share it. And we caught the moment like that. Everything doesn't have to be super overproduced, right? You don't need to be in a studio feeling awkward and being like, episode 5, I'm dissecting imposter syndrome, right? You can literally be there being like, guys, I feel really, really fucking insecure today. I feel head down. Like, can anyone relate? That's a bit of content. That's authentic. That's in the moment. And that stuff is so much more real. It often performs a lot better as well.
All right. Yeah, that's great.
You're going to smash it.
All right. Love those points. Cheers.
As always, that's it from me. I hope you got value from this episode, and I will see you this time next week. Hey, thanks so much for watching this episode. Really, really appreciate you being here with me. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe right here on YouTube. Remember, tick the little bell icon so that you get proper notifications. I really hope you're enjoying the show. I hope you'll stick around for the upcoming episodes. I really want to keep bringing you as much value as possible. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you guys soon.